Well, it's no secret that a wave of anonymous donations are part of what's fueling the presidential race ahead of November. But one mystery still hasn't been solved from the last election. A single anonymous donation of $64 million that was used to help Joe Biden defeat Donald Trump back in 2020. The source of that money remains unknown. CBS News investigative producer Daniel Kleidman joins us now. Daniel, it's great to see you. So what do we know, if anything, about where this money came from and how it was moved around to help Joe Biden?
Well, we know very little about it, and that's part of the problem. So what we do know is that in July of 2020, a 501c4 tax-exempt organization just kind of popped up out of the blue and received this $64 million donation from an anonymous source, which was a staggering amount of money. Most people think that the money came from a very wealthy pro-Biden individual, but it could have come from a company, it could have come from an LLC with a person or several people behind it. Then that $55 million of that $64 million, just a few weeks later, moved to the 501c4 nonprofit wing of the main Biden super PAC called Future Forward. And at that point, Future Forward, as a super PAC, it's allowed to spend the money on electioneering, on supporting an individual candidate, and it does have to disclose who gave it the money. But the last donor was Future Forward, was the 501c4 of Future Forward. So that's all you're learning, that it came from Future Forward USA Action, which no one knows what that is, right? No one knows what if that's a particular individual or what the provenance of that money is, the origin of that money.
And what their interests are.
And what their interests are. That's the point. That's what good government groups and people who really believe that transparency in our campaign finance system is important are concerned about, this trend. Billions of dollars moving into politics. No one knows what the agendas or the interest behind the money really is.
Which is exactly why the president himself has before criticized dark money. He said in 2022, there's much too much money that flows in the shadows to influence our elections. Dark money erodes public trust. But here we are. How do Democrats feel about this huge figure now that we are in election year?
Yeah, look, I don't doubt Democrats and President Biden that he wishes that we didn't have this system. I think a lot of people do. Their argument is, well, this is the system that exists. The other side is taking full advantage of it, and we're not going to unilaterally disarm. Or, as a Democratic strategist said to me a little more pithily, when you show up at a gunfight, you don't bring a knife.
Well, there is a new dark money group supporting Trump. And they're running an ad in Pennsylvania going after Biden. Can you talk about how important these anonymous donations are to campaigns?
Well, they're very important to both sides right now because there are a lot of people out there, a lot of very wealthy individuals who don't want their names associated with these contributions. And you're right, a group just popped up last week called Securing American Greatness. That is a pro-Trump group that spent about $2 million on ads supporting Donald Trump and attacking Joe Biden for, in their view, ignoring the inflation issue. We have no idea who gave that money, and this is just happening over and over again. And there's sometimes legitimate reasons that people don't want their names associated with the contributions they give. Oh, they don't. Some people do it out of humility, but for the most part, I think people are doing it for other reasons. One is that they're concerned about alienating the other side. A lot of people who have a lot of money, they're hedging their bets, and they're concerned that if they give money to one side and then the other side wins, that may be a problem for them.
And sorry if this is a dumb question, but just to be clear, you and I don't know who made this donation. Does Joe Biden and Donald Trump?
Well, that's a good question. They're not supposed to know because their campaigns and their political teams are not supposed to coordinate with super PACs. But My guess is people in their orbit do know. It's hard to keep that kind of secret if it's $64 million, a staggering amount of money.
Well, we will see if there's another mystery for this year. Thank you so much, Daniel Kleidman.
Thanks for having me.